Hello, good morning, and welcome to Monday Mentor. I'm Jen Whitmer, and I help people restore the joy to work through communication solutions, solving conflict, and developing self-awareness so everybody can get their work done in a great, fantastic way. And every week, I bring on a special guest to give you some leadership advice to help you build that highly empowered team that is flourishing and profitable and just enjoys being together. And that is really fantastic for today's guest. I cannot wait for you to meet Gary. Gary Ware is a play expert. He is a keynote speaker and workshop facilitator, a joy and delight of a human, a lovely dad and husband. And I am so excited that he is joining us today. So welcome, Gary.
Hello. Oh my gosh. What an amazing intro. Thank you so much, Jen.
Oh, I mean every word, and I could gush for a really long time, but I actually want to hear from you. So that is why I stopped it short. So if you are here live, let us know in the comments you're here live. If you're catching the replay, let us know you're catching the replay. We will answer questions because that's why we're here. That's why we call it Monday Mentor. We're here to help you out. So I always like to start with how did you get here, Gary? Not like on my live today, but like, how did you get to this place in your life where you're helping teams really harness that power of play to create great workplaces? How did you tell us the journey?
I would like to say that it was all intentional and I had this set out decades ago.
That's right.
But
At
that's not the
14, there was
case.
a list.
Right? Real quick aside. To those people who, when they were younger, they like knew exactly what they wanted to do and they were on that path. Oh my gosh, I admire you so much. I wish that was the case with me. I like to say it was a case of a lot of happy accidents that led me to where I am now. My background is in marketing and communications. I went to the Art Institute in Santa Monica, California. I always thought that I was going to be some sort of Don Draper, sort of madman-ish type person. And again, this was pre-Mad Men, like when I sort of got into that. But like, yes, working for agencies, getting to do all of that cool stuff. And for a while, that was my life. I, at one point, was a director at one of the world's largest independent digital marketing agencies. Underneath me, I had like a staff of like 20 or so people that were on my team. And that right there was the catalyst for me to actually level up my skills as a leader, because I was really good at what I did. However, I was not that good of a leader at first. And I knew that. I had the self-awareness to know that, uh, I don't want to be a crappy boss. And so I was always looking for ways that would help me better communicate, help me better lead, so I can get my stuff done. Because at first I was the type that would like, oh no, I'll just do it. It's faster if I do it. And then I realized that I was burning myself out a lot. But
Yeah.
anyways, origin story on all these little happy accidents. So again, first happy accident was I was really good at my job, and then they said, "Hey, here's some people. Why don't you manage them?" And then that was the trigger for me to level up my skills. And then on that path, a path of leveling up, I discovered the world of improvisation. I did not seek out to be an improv comedian, to perform on stages with an ensemble without a script and creating stories out of thin air. I just wanted to get better at public speaking, and I hated Toastmasters. And that's the short of it. And a mentor of mine said, "Hey, have you considered improv?" And I was like, "What? Improv comedy?" And so but I took it because I wanted to get better at public speaking. And that first improv class blew me wide open on so many different levels. One, because it was play, and we'll talk about play and its place in the workplace in a moment. But for 2 hours, I was completely focused. I was completely in the moment. I was doing these silly games. I was connecting with these people I didn't even know. And then afterwards, we were closer. You know, the people that were in my very first improv class over 12 years ago, I am still extremely close with. We connect, some of which I still perform with. But I wanted to bring this to my team. I was like, I saw the connections between these activities that we're doing that were helping us be able to perform on the stage, and how that can affect us on the stage of life. And so I brought these activities and these games and whatnot to my team, and we were playing, and we were getting better, and we were gelling. And so, but then that got me on like, well, what else? What else is out there? It helped me rediscover play, and then I was just on this path of figuring out how to bring more of that to my team. It was always in service of the team that I was leading, and as far as my career journey, I thought the next logical step in my career after working at all these agencies is to run my own. Again, sort of the madman style. And I did get that opportunity, which didn't end up so well. We were in business for about 4.5 years, and then my business partner decided that we were better off separate. And so he took the agency and left, and then I was at a crossroads of what do I do next? And then that was how I took a right turn and said, all right, no more agency life. I would rather be a facilitator. And here we are years later after that.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many great things in your story that what you said, but I think one of them is that most paths aren't linear. And you have a really common experience. And Leslie, who is in here from Texas, she, if I remember right, is an HR consultant. And I'm sure she's seen in plenty of times where somebody gets promoted because they're really good at their job. And now, oh, I've got people. And so that is often the impetus. And that's a lot of the people that I end up helping too, because they're like, ooh, now, oh, like it's that, oh crap moment. I got to do this. Other people are depending on me. And so that nonlinear path and that common experience of now what, I think is really helpful to people. And the other thing is that you noticed the results. Like, oh, I did this thing with my team and we noticed how powerful it was. And I love that. And we're going to kind of circle back around to that in a little bit. And I want to ask the question. So we're talking about play and why play is important in business and why play maximizes your leadership. But some people have very different views about what play is. So one of my goals is always to create shared meaning. So what do you define as play? Frame our conversation around what is play?
Yes. And it makes sense that so many different people have different definitions of play, because play is not some singular thing. It is very broad. Yeah. There's different forms of play, and different outcomes of play. Most adults, however, they see play as a frivolous thing that just kids do. It is make-believe, or it's a waste of time, and it gets in the way of running my business. We need to be working. I get that a lot. Totally get it. Play in its sort of essence is to do an activity and be more focused on whatever you're doing than the outcome at hand. And it's essentially very similar to flow. If you're familiar with mindfulness and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow, there's a lot of commonalities between flow and play. You're doing an activity where you're being challenged just enough. Time goes by like that. It's somewhat pleasurable. That is what play is. Now, so that's a very broad definition of play. We can slice it up into other areas. When I bring it to corporations, I call it purposeful play. So it is, play that has a very specific purpose at hand. It's usually around connecting teams. It's usually around leveling up skills and retaining that knowledge. Those are the areas that I feel like business leaders, they can sort of wrap their head around. Is like, all right, tell me more about that. We're not just goofing off for the sake of goofing off.
Yes, we do as adults sometimes, I think, dismiss the importance of sometimes just goofing off, like that there is some power in that. But in the business world, sometimes there's the idea that doesn't have a line item. Like that's not a line item in the budget, even though it's so powerful. I think that's sometimes the force that we press against when we're talking about play. But when we talk about it being purposeful, that starts to shift a little bit of how we look at that. And I'm really curious. One of the things that you said was this idea that play is anything that is you're really absorbed in this in the moment. So what do you see a little bit is the difference between play and playfulness, of doing things with a playful attitude? How do those compare and contrast?
Yes. So play is the activity. playfulness is the vibe, it's the mindset.
Yeah.
And you bring up a very great point of having a mindset of playfulness is essential. It's a amazing way of being. We both share a liking of Ted Lasso, and
Yes. My
the show
belief
on
sign
Apple
is
Plus.
over here. You all can't see it. You can just see Gary's.
You can believe that Jen's belief sign is right there. It's there.
That's right. Maybe we'll go on a tour later. No, go ahead.
Right?
But yes, Ted Lasso.
But Ted is a very playful individual. I don't want to really get into spoilers of the most recent season, but if you've seen the most recent season, the first episode, there's a direct contrast between playfulness and its effect on people's morale and outcomes, and non-playfulness, very seriousness. That episode right there shows it. Go watch it if you have the ability to do that. But playfulness is a state of mind. It's a way of being, and it is not always, up until like maybe the last like 5-10 years, wasn't necessarily accepted in the workplace, because it, maybe, you came across as, weak, or you came across as not serious. And there was a certain sort of mask that you had to wear in the business arena. And if you deviated from that, people didn't take you seriously, et cetera, et cetera. But however, when you are being playful, and there's, if you actually, I'll tell this first. So I call it the playful map, MAP. It's an acronym. What is your method of playfulness? Who is the audience? And what's the objective? What are you trying to achieve with your playfulness? And so maybe your method is memes. I love sharing memes. It's, again, something to get a laugh, something to really drill in a point or something like that. Your audience, could be your employees. And what's the objective? Again, to help people realize that we should not take ourselves too seriously. Again, when you start to put it in that sort of framework, you can realize that there is a time and place for playfulness. And again, yes, not all playfulness needs to be in the workplace. And what you said before, sometimes, as far as playfulness and that sort of spirit and vibe is essential. It's essential for, again, helping people to let off steam. It's essential for getting us all sort of connected together, even when times are rough, or especially when times are rough. We need to bring that playfulness. So playfulness is the vibe. Play is the activity.
I love that. And I love that map. So your method, your audience, and the purpose, like that's a really clear way of how do we look at playfulness, because I think that is the fear. Like you said, I'm going to look foolish. People are going to think that I'm weak. There's like, those fears are very real when we're talking about introducing this type of posture in the workplace. And I'm curious a little bit more, because you said, you kind of dripped a little bit of like, here's what happens when we play more. But tell us more about, why does this maximize what we're doing? Why does play help us as a team to, be more profitable at the end of the day? That's what a business needs to do, or a nonprofit needs to serve their people in that way. How does play help?
Yes. So I will start with the individual, the leader who is listening to this, of like, why should I do it? One, if you are a playful leader, you are seen as more intelligent than, there's research that backs this up, as seen as more intelligent than your counterparts who are not. If you're a playful leader, you can connect with your audience a lot faster. You can gain rapport a lot faster, which means that you can have those tough conversations, because you are showing vulnerability. Being playful is a form of vulnerability. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that being vulnerable is crucial to business success. And so, again, if you're a playful leader, you bring that vulnerability. You're going to be able to connect with the people in your command a lot faster, so that you can really get down to business. So again, those two things: who doesn't want to be seen as more intelligent? Who doesn't want to connect with their team faster? So those are like at the individual level. Now let's look at a sort of business level. Teams that have the ability to bring play and playfulness into the workplace are more productive. Reason why is that they're not burning themselves out, because there was a study during the pandemic from Microsoft that they had their employees were these EKG caps, and then they measured the brainwaves from meeting to meeting to meeting. And then the employees, this is actually kind of weird. Like, who would sign up for that? Like, Microsoft, you know what?
That's
We
what
want to do a
I'm
study.
so curious about. Like, oh, I don't know if I'd
And
say.
right? How did that
But
work?
we're glad for the research.
Yeah, right. Like, are you wearing these? Anyways, I digress. But the ones who went from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, like again with no breaks, by fifth meeting, their brains were essentially fried. It was like
Of course.
ridiculous. However, those who took breaks in between, by the fifth meeting, in some cases, their brain looked even more refreshed than the first meeting. So
Yeah.
again, someone that is teams that are playful, they know when they've hit their limit or they're approaching their limit, and they do things to rejuvenate. And teams that are playful have a higher level of psychological safety, and what that means is that they feel more likely to, or they're more likely to speak up, to say what they need to say, compared to teams who have low levels of psychological safety, and they tend to cover things up because they're scared of the repercussions of speaking their mind and being, stating their truth. So again, wouldn't you want that as a business leader? Teams that are more playful, they have lower levels of turnover, higher engagement rates, which means that, so we all have this reserve of energy, disposable energy. We all have it. We have baseline energy that allows us to do our work. Just you're doing your work, and you have this reserve of energy. And with this reserve of energy, you're doing one of three things. You are sort of being that person that is sort of throwing wrenches in everyone's game. Those toxic type people. That's a small percentage, believe it or not. There's a small percentage of people with their disposable energy. There's like, hey, I'm just gonna make a negative ruckus of things.
I always say about those people, if you're gonna stir the poop pot, you have to lick the spoon. But
right?
I digress.
Anyway, it's a small percent. And then there is a percentage of people, another small percent, that go above and beyond, of like, oh, let me think of other things I can do to, help my team. And this is the largest percentage. And this is why we want to bring play and playfulness into the organization, so we can shift this group. So there's a large percentage of people that are like, I just want to get under the radar. I don't want people to see me. Like, I don't want like any of this, like, and this is like normal. This has been going on pre-pandemic. There's always been this sort of group of people. Now, if you could bring the play and playfulness, it makes the environment a better environment to be in, and more likely that people would want to go above and beyond. And I want to stress, want to
shift people in there. Yeah. That's so good. It's so good. I think, one of the pieces of resistance that I always call myself a joy bringer. People get a little nervous sometimes. They're like, "What are you going to make me do?" And I think because they get a little scared. So for the leader who's listening to this, like, "Oh gosh, I want higher employee retention. I want more psychological safety. I want to shift people into the people who are wanting to do more, but I don't really know how to play and be playful. Where do I start? Where's a good place just to give them, like, not step 82, but like, what's the next step to move forward into more playfulness?
Consult the MAP. What is something that you can do that is playful, that is very low risk? Maybe it's at the start of a meeting, you do an icebreaker. You do something where, a really easy game is a game I call it True for Me, where, you just go around and, hey, if this is true for you, raise your hand or stand up. You're a morning person, whatever. It's very simple. Like, it's very like easy, for people to get in. But the cool thing is it seems like frivolous, but you find so much about your colleagues in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then now that was a very playful moment. And now we've connected. And now you have what I like to call the DOSE, DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Those are the neurochemicals that are going to help your team be focused, feel like they belong, trust each other, and have creativity. So that's just an easy thing. Or it could be, in an email that you send out. Maybe you, a good friend of mine, his name is Andrew Tarvin. He focuses on humor at work. He's also an improviser like myself. and he puts puns in the PS of his email. And he's been doing that since he was in the corporate space, and people look forward to that. And again, it's a small, playful thing that showcases his nerdy personality that, again, people love it. And again, it's sort of breaking down those walls. It's bringing in the connection. So start small, and it could be something small, or maybe it's something, where you are intentionally with your team, have a connection moment, with the team. Whether that could be like a virtual thing where you're like, hey, look, we're just gonna, 10 minutes before this call, we're just going to sort of share what's going on. Again, very easy thing as a way to just create a moment. Or maybe if you're back in person on a Friday, come like 2:30 where everyone's like pretty much done anyway. Bring everyone into like the conference room, have some snacks, play some music, and just a moment for people to connect. It can start small, and then you can slowly start to bring out your playfulness.
Yeah, I love that. I have a local friend who runs, she'll just start a business when she gets an idea, but she runs a couple of very successful businesses here in St. Louis. And one of the things that they've started doing over the last year, when they came back to the office, was just having a puzzle table. And it's just like, I love doing this like Thanksgiving and Christmas at our house. We just have a puzzle, and like everybody congregates in the different groups around. And so it doesn't even, like, that's real low risk, but she has even commented how much excitement happens around what's the new puzzle. It's kind of, everybody gets a little excited, and like ideas come, because I mean, we could talk forever about the neurobiology of why play is important and puzzling in particular, but like the new ideas and the innovation that comes, and she's just seen these results, and it's just so fun to watch people embrace that. And I think as we do our work and helping bring that, I think we're just going to continue to see this momentum build, that we can connect with people at work in a way that doesn't have to be so rigid. And it actually gets us all the things that we want in that way. So I just looked at the time, and oh, wow. So we should probably wrap it up. So you've been so wonderful. You've given us so much today. I'm so grateful. Where can the people find you? Tell them where to connect with you. Gary has a fantastic book called Playful Rebellion. You can get that here, but tell the people where to find you.
Yeah. Excuse me. If you're on LinkedIn watching this, or you have a LinkedIn account, look me up, Gary Ware. Otherwise, I'm on the socials at Gary Ware. You can also go to my website, breakthroughplay.com, where I have lots of resources around ways that you can incorporate play and playfulness into your organization. Love to chat.
Awesome. Yeah, Gary and I both do Friday Funnies. Gary does them every week on Instagram. I just do them the first Friday of the month. It became overwhelming for me. And so we do like to practice what we preach and have a good time in different places. So Come check Gary out. Gary, thank you again for being here and giving us such great wisdom in a really joyful, I'm making up words, joyful way. It's fine. We'll just make things up. Next week, Matt Putra will be here. I'm so excited to interview him. We are here every week, Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern, giving you really great advice to be a better leader, healthy leader, to create a really great empowered team. So Gary, thanks for being a part of that today.
Yay. Thank you, Jen, for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody. See you next week.